All right, so this feels good. This feels really good. Finally able to avenge the losses of the past. I mean, losing 4 in a row was bad enough, but particularly losing last year's game when Ohio State was just the far better team than Michigan. Going into this game, that's just what caused me to approach it with caution. I still picked an Ohio State win. I thought it was going to be honest, like a 4-quarter battle. It wasn't that at all, but knowing that Michigan has had the mental advantage over Ohio State in this rivalry, Ohio State would just kind of get in their own way, especially looking back at last year's team and last year's loss. I had to approach this game with that kind of caution. And to start the game, I wasn't in panic mode, but did I have a heart attack? Yeah, probably, because I had a feeling that, look, this sort of thing could happen. This start could happen. Michigan's run game was gashing Ohio State's defense early on. They get the early field goal on their first drive, their opening drive. And then Ohio State's, Julian Sain's second pass of the game on their first offensive drive is picked. And then it's returned, not in the red zone, but setting Michigan up for a prime scoring opportunity yet again early on in this game. And that's not the worst possible start you could have, but that's not good, especially on the road, in the elements. And I was always worried that this kind of start could happen again. If you look at Ohio State quarterbacks the last 2 years, Kyle McCord had a pick early on in 2023. Will Howard had a pick early on last year, 2024. Julian Sain has been very good, very accurate this year. I did not think he would have that kind of mistake, but he did. Now, the good news is Ohio State's defense only giving up 6 points, 2 field goals. That's great. That's a major win in itself. If they had given up 14, maybe that game could have gotten away from them. I'm not saying Michigan would have won, but man, it probably would have looked and felt a lot different if Michigan went up 14-0 early on in the first quarter. And Ryan Day said this. I mean, like, there was no panic on the sideline. They knew that they could rely on their defense. I mean, that's the ultimate safety valve. They have the best defense in the country. They probably have the best D coordinator in the country in college football, Matt Patricia. And that's just their ultimate safety blanket. If the offense isn't clicking to start the game, or if the team in general just isn't sharp to start a game, defense travels, and you know that the best defense in the country is going to show up, and they're going to make sure they keep you in the game. And that is exactly what they did. And then after the first quarter, I mean, it was nothing. And so let's just go through it really quick here. Ohio State goes down. I mean, they had that weird first red zone series where they just could not punch the ball in the end zone. They get a field goal out of it, so it's 6-3. And when that first quarter nightmare is over, they really started to settle in, and they looked pretty good doing it. So second quarter, that first touchdown, that touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith on that fourth down call, which was a gutsy call, by the way, but an aggressive call, which I loved. That was the beginning of the end. I mean, honestly, that was the game right there. That put Ohio State up 10-6. And I feel like you guys might call me crazy. You might call me a homer for saying this, but Julian saying that fourth down touchdown throw to Jeremiah Smith could be a Heisman moment. He might win the damn thing, guys. It's going to be him or Fernando Mendoza. I think at this point, we'll see how they battle it out in the Big Ten Championship. My guess is that the winning quarterback will go on to win the Heisman. I think a lot of people want Fernando Mendoza to win it. They want the small town, they want the Indiana program to win that award kind of thing. But Julian Sain, California kid playing in the snow. I know that maybe it wasn't snowing at that exact point in time, but Michigan fans have been telling me California quarterbacks can't play in the snow, so he's playing in the cold, in the elements. It's a fourth down throw. The game did not start the way they wanted to at all. You're playing a team, your rival. You haven't beaten in 4 straight seasons. You're on the road, and it was just like, not that everything was stacked against them, but in a way it kind of was, and especially when that's amplified by having the early turnover and not having the start that you wanted. But for him to throw that ball on fourth down, great ball to Jeremiah Smith, touchdown, and that puts him ahead in what is essentially the game. There's more to that moment than I think people think. A Heisman moment does not just have to be end of the game against a 3-win Penn State team like Fernando Mendoza had when they came back and beat Penn State. This in itself is also a Heisman moment, I think, for Julian Sain. So after that first touchdown for Ohio State, Michigan goes on a 5.5-minute drive. They kick a field goal. It's 10-9, and that is it for Michigan. What Ohio State does after this, incredibly impressive. They essentially go on to control the middle 8. They score a touchdown right before half. They go on an 87-yard drive, takes up 5 minutes. They score. They go up 17-9 with just 16 seconds before halftime. So that's perfect. That's exactly what you're looking for in that position. You go on a long drive, you basically kill the entire clock, and you score a touchdown before half. And then Ohio State gets the ball after halftime. They don't go 3 and out. I remember they moved the ball a little bit, but they had to punt. There was a dropped ball to Max Clare. It was kind of thrown behind him a little bit. I thought if he caught that, it would have been a first down. They probably score on that drive, but they don't. I think they have to punt. Michigan does nothing with it. Ohio State gets the ball back, and this is the deep shot to Carnell Tate. 2 plays, 57 yards, 45 seconds. They go up 24-9, and that felt like the game. This felt like, in the moment, in my Ohio State Twitter group chat, I mean, people were talking about, this is the time for a deep shot. This is like a kill shot. And I call these, I mean, these are like missile strikes I've been saying all year, when Julian Sain just throws a beautiful ball 40, 50 yards down the field to Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith. And it's just, it can happen at any time, to anyone, anywhere. And at that point, it felt like Ohio State was kind of queuing up and just waiting to take a shot. And once they get to midfield, especially in the third quarter of a game like this, they like to blow it open a little bit. They like to take a shot and extend their lead. And that's exactly what they did. And at this point, a lot of Ohio State fans were saying that was the game. And I wasn't quite there yet. I mean, I guess it sort of felt like it, but I was a little hesitant to come out and say that when we're still in the third quarter. But in my head, I'm more of thinking, how many offensive drives does Michigan have left in this game? And knowing the defense was giving up nothing else at that point, I mean, it's like, well, I kind of answered my own question. This game is probably over. So Michigan gets the ball back. They go on a 7-play, 29-yard drive. They do nothing with it. And then what Ohio State does on their next drive is incredibly impressive. This might be their best drive of the year. They get the ball back with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. They go on a 20-play, 81-yard drive that takes 12 minutes off the clock. And they only get 3 points out of it, which is fine. I mean, it wasn't a perfect drive. They didn't score a touchdown. You would have wanted a touchdown on that drive, of course. But getting 3 points, you're pushing that game further away. It's now a 3-score game. And on top of that, what they did in this drive, 20 plays, 81 yards, 12 minutes off. Guys, this was essentially a quarter of the game just on this drive. And this is what Ohio State has been so good at doing all year, is just controlling the game and playing it on their terms. I thought to start the game, Ohio State was playing the game on Michigan's terms with how that game started in the first quarter, and I did not like that at all. But then Ohio State opened it up, got their offense going, got their offense in a rhythm, hit that deep shot to Carnell Tate, and just completely grabbed the game and put it back on their own terms. And this drive, 20 plays, 16 of those plays were run plays. And so that also goes to show that, you know, that bully ball mentality that Ohio State has been trying to bring to this game and hasn't been working. I think it's because in the past they've tried to force it before the pass game could really get going. And then when the run game wasn't working, now you have to throw because it's a tight game or you're losing, and there's no rhythm. It doesn't feel right. In this game, you started to see the pass game open up the run game a little bit, and then all of a sudden they could just lean on their offensive line, and Michigan's defense was just getting gashed. And so to have a 20-play drive, or 16 of those plays were run plays, it took 12 minutes off the clock, 81 yards, maybe Ohio State's most impressive drive of the year when you consider how they controlled the ball and the opponent and just what they were able to do on that drive. Incredibly impressive. So let's talk head coaches for a second. Let's start with Ryan Day. I'm very happy for Ryan Day. As a fan, of course, I'm very happy with the result of this game, but for Ryan Day, he's been through hell for the last 4 seasons, and starts with 2021. Losing the game sucks, but like Ohio State, it wasn't going to win the game in this rivalry every year forever. So we knew that we were due for a loss in this game, and it was the comments that Jim Harbaugh made post-game saying, born on third base. That was kind of what really started this and what made it personal for Ryan Day. And then there's the Connor Stallions thing that comes out, and that affected multiple seasons. And then there's also how last year's game ended when Ohio State just was the much better team, got in their head, and Michigan had the flag plant at Ohio Stadium. So all these things made it very personal for Ryan Day, as it would for anyone. And he even said post-game that, you know, there's a lot of things that he wants to say, that he's not going to say those things. He's going to keep those comments to himself. And, you know, he's just going to take the high road, which I certainly appreciate it as an Ohio State fan. Like he never says anything that will put the university or his football program in negative light. He always says the right thing. He keeps himself in a cool, controlled manner, and you do appreciate that. I mean, you see coaches sometimes will speak out or will act out or will be frustrated. I mean, Mike Elko right after A&M lost at Texas, was pissed off because he could hear the celebration from Texas or something like that. In his press conference, he had a little outburst, which is like, that's not a horrible thing, but Ryan Day just keeps himself very cool, calm, collected when talking to the media or when he's in that public setting, and you appreciate that. Now, did a little part of me want him to say something because this was his moment? He finally had his stage to say something. I did. A small part of me wanted I don't know. I didn't want him to attack Jim Harbaugh or Sharon Moore or the University of Michigan, but it would have been, I don't know. It would have been nice, but I totally understand and respect and appreciate the fact that he takes the high road. He said they're going to win with humility. He shut down a flag plant that was trying to happen at midfield. And, sometimes that's the best thing you could do, is just not allow yourself to stoop down to their level. And now I want to go to Sharon Moore. So obviously I'm an Ohio State fan, so I'm biased. So, you can take this with a grain of salt if you want, but I try to look at these things through the most unbiased lens as possible. I don't think Sharon Moore is a good coach. And that goes back to last year's win. I think we can all agree Ohio State lost the game to Michigan in 2024 more than Michigan won that game. So I'm not saying I give Sharon Moore no credit for that win, but I'll give him very, very minimal credit. Now, to his credit, I'll say that he's a good recruiter. He seems like he's very good with those relationships and building a recruiting base and just connecting to his players and bringing guys in, bringing guys to buy in. I think he's good with that. Michigan's recruiting is up. I know they got their NIL in order. So I think on that front, he's been good. But I've seen Michigan fans complaining about in-game situations and just weird things. I mean, he called a timeout with 2 minutes and 3 seconds left before the 2-minute warning in the first half when Michigan was on defense, I think, right? And that was a weird call. Like, Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson were talking about it. They couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't make sense of it. It's like, why? I don't think Ohio State was even ready to snap the ball at that point. So, like, I don't know why you would call a timeout there unless you just didn't know where you were with the game clock. So I've seen Michigan fans continuing to complain, especially this year, about Sharon Moore, and I get it. I mean, you guys are 9-3. You've missed the 12-team playoff for 2 years in a row. I think last year's team, I don't put it too much on Sharon Moore. I mean, Jim Harbaugh decimated that program when he left, and it had to be built back up a little bit, so I'll give Sharon Moore a little bit of grace for last year. But this year, you got your $12 million quarterback. I know he's a true freshman, but he did not progress throughout the year at all, which tells me maybe it's a coaching thing. Not even maybe. I think it is a coaching thing. I think the arm talent is there. He can run. He's a dual threat, but he did not progress throughout the year. So I can see and understand why Michigan fans think and question whether or not this coaching staff, head coached by Sharon Moore, is going to be good enough to get them back up to that national championship caliber level. They're not even making the 12-team playoff. Ohio State fans, or I should say Michigan fans, can clown Ohio State and say, hey, last year you guys needed an expanded 12-team playoff in order to win the national championship. Well, in a world where we've expanded the playoff twice, or at least we've expanded it once for 2 years, the 12-team playoff is now for 2 years, Michigan hasn't made it either year. And I think if they won this game, they would have made it in. They would have been a 10-win team with the best win in the country. They would have made it in the playoff, and they were not competitive after the first quarter of this game. So I think it's fair to question Sharon Moore because in-game management, the coaching, the progression of players throughout the year, I know Michigan was banged up. Everyone's banged up in November at this point in the season. I understand and acknowledge why there's maybe a little bit of a civil war with Michigan fans on whether or not Sharon Moore is going to be the guy moving forward.